Incredible Crisis is easily one of the weirdest but most enjoyable games on the PlayStation that follows a family as they try to make it home for their grandmother's birthday. What starts out as a simple task soon spirals into absolute mayhem, with each of the characters' stories being told through a series of different minigames. The variety of challenges is huge, ranging from flying planes to outrunning bad guys on a snowboard and even having a dance-off, with each of the characters featuring up to 7 minigames with a total of 24 across the board. What makes this so much fun is just how easy it is to pick up and play, with the game using basic inputs or simple movements of the analog stick, but it does ramp up and offer a bit more difficulty, with many of the minigames requiring a lot of quick thinking and reflexes in order to get the highest score. Now you're given a limited number of lives, represented by hearts, and failing a minigame costs one of them, with the risk of a game over sending you right back to the start of the chapter. It can be frustrating, especially in later stages, but the short length of each activity and the sheer hilarity of the situations will help soften the blow. One of the best things about the game is its visuals that are used to great effect, with exaggerated character models and vibrant backdrops that go hand in hand with the comedic nature of the challenges. The same can be said for the animations that are bound to put a stupid grin on your face as you work towards the end of the game, with all of the characters feeling like real personalities that once again amplify the game's comedy. So whether you're dodging UFOs, robbing banks, skateboarding through traffic, or dancing your heart out, Incredible Crisis is a shining example of a weird but great game to spend your time with. The PlayStation had its fair share of eccentric games, but few stood out as much as Power Shovel did. Much like its name suggests, the gameplay revolves around operating a range of heavy machinery on a construction site, with it all being split up into 2 main modes. First, you've got Arcade, that features a series of different missions that range from standard activities, such as loading dirt onto trucks, to the more absurd challenges like pouring curry onto bowls of rice, all under the watchful eye of a foreman who's not afraid to berate you for making mistakes. By completing these missions, you'll be rewarded with money that can be spent on unlockables like new minigames, music tracks, artwork, and even photos of real-world machinery. The second mode is License, and this is where the game ramps up its difficulty and tasks you with precision-based tests, like parking a digger, navigating sites without hitting anything, or digging holes within a strict time limit. These are really tough and demand that you've got the controls down, which admittedly are quite hard to get to grips with, as nearly every button on the controller is used to operate the vehicle, mimicking the complexity of using one of them in real life, and at first it can be pretty overwhelming, with the learning curve being quite steep but rewarding, and making every successful scoop or demolition come along with a satisfying sense of accomplishment. So whether you're digging holes, smashing cars, or serving up curry, Power Shovel is a hell of a lot of fun, so if you come across it or are looking for something new to emulate, it is well worth checking out. Skull Monkeys is a sequel to a classic PC game known as The Neverhood, which traded in its focus on puzzles for platforming and sees you taken on the role of Clayman, the hero from the first game, where you've got to once again stop the plans of Clark, who was all but defeated but managed to find a way to survive. As with many platformers, the story is pretty light, but it doesn't really need to be anything more, and instead where the game excels is with its gameplay. It's a side-scrolling platformer that channels the spirit of classics like Mario and Donkey Kong, but with a distinctly weird flavour reminiscent of Earthworm Jim. There's roughly 90 levels to make your way through, spread out across 7 different worlds that each have their own theme, where your mission is to navigate platforms, dodge enemies, and defeat bosses, all the while collecting as many clay balls as you can, which help you work towards unlocking one of the game's many secrets. Thankfully, Clayman is pretty agile, and you've got the basic moveset, including jumping, ducking, and a butt bounce, which serves as your means to squash your enemies. But what helps set it apart is the great selection of power-ups that you'll come across, from being able to fire orbs as projectiles, to launching missile homing birds, or summoning a far-powered clone to scout out ahead. They all infuse the game with a weird but playful energy that keeps each and every level just as entertaining as the last. When it comes down to it, Skull Monkeys really sums up the magic of the PlayStation era, where developers weren't afraid to take risks, and it blends the perfect dose of difficulty with an ever-increasing amount of humour and weirdness that it can proudly call its own. Germs on the PlayStation is an open-world horror game with a sci-fi twist that leans into the kind of unsettling vibes often found within the works of the likes of David Lynch and delivers a disturbing and eerie adventure. You play the part of a reporter who's sent to investigate a mysterious glowing object and reports of grotesque monsters attacking a town. You'll have to explore and gather clues and interact with an ever-increasingly strange cast of NPCs as you follow leads and occasionally find yourself in combat with the bizarre creatures. As with most horror games of the time, tank controls are your means of getting around, and going back to it today may turn some players off, but they do add to the tension and deliberate pacing of the game as you navigate the town. As I mentioned, combat also plays a role, and throughout the game you'll end up with a few different weapons that'll help you fight back. First off, you've got your trusty pipe that you start out with, but you soon come to possess a range of different guns that help even the odds against the monsters. In a pretty cool twist though, if you die you transform into one of these creatures, and you've got to find your way to a hospital in order to revert back to your human form, which further plays into the fact that the monsters you're fighting used to be people themselves. This aspect is emphasised even more as you're able to read the lingering thoughts of your enemies upon their death, which reveals certain aspects about their lives as well as clues on how to continue. If you're a fan of old school horror games and have a fondness for the weird and bizarre, then Germs is a game that deserves your time. Bishy Bash is a game that's all about diving headfirst into a range of absurd, bite-sized challenges that are all designed to test your reflexes, wits, and ability to keep a straight face. There's just over 80 of them to complete, each lasting from 10 to 30 seconds, with the variety being the true star of the show. May that be bowling, unlocking safes, or piloting UFOs and abducting cows, the sheer amount of different activities is insane, and the game only makes use of a few buttons on the controller, making it accessible to players of all ages. As I mentioned, each of these minigames demand quick reflexes or precise timing, from mashing buttons to stack plates in a restaurant, to rotating the analog stick to wind up a robot, or tapping in rhythm to make a character dance. Binding all of them together is the focus on getting a high score, which not only adds to the replay value, but also serves as a means to unlock hidden minigames, encouraging you to perfect your performance and thankfully have something to be rewarded with at the end. But where the game truly comes to life is with its multiplayer mode, and by hooking up two multi-taps, it's possible for 8 players to get in on the chaos, and the genius lies in how the minigames are designed with the perfect balance of cooperation and sabotage. When you put this together with the game's absurd scenarios, it's a recipe for one hell of a good time, and it ends up being one of the greatest arcade-like experiences that you can find on the PlayStation. With its generous amount of minigames, vibrant and creative visual style, as well as its catchy soundtrack that'll no doubt get stuck in your head for days, Bishy Bash is well worth adding to your collection. Blasto is an over-the-top third-person shooter that combines its retro aesthetic with a healthy dose of humour and ends up coming off as a sort of love letter to the sci-fi B-movies of old. You play as Captain Blasto, who's the galaxy's last hope against a race of grotesque aliens who are hell-bent on dominating the universe, with the game offering up a satisfying blend of gunplay, exploration and platforming, set across 8 different levels. From neon-lit space stations to lava-filled volcanoes and underwater cities, you've got to mow down waves of aliens, and luckily you're more than up to the challenge thanks to a great range of different weapons. From your rapid blaster to flamethrowers and missiles that all come along with their own unique strengths, encouraging you to constantly switch them up to take on the enemy. Now the platforming aspect of the game doesn't feel tacked on, and there's a great amount of challenge when it comes to navigating each environment, with all of the levels being expansive and filled with secrets like hidden rooms and extra lives that make exploring every inch all the more rewarding. You've also got power-ups to find and utilise, with the jetpack being one of the most useful, allowing you to soar over gaps and quickly get out of harm's way, as well as ones that grant you invincibility that are perfect for when the action heats up. What really helps Blasto stand out though is the incredible performance by Phil Hartman that gives the captain his attitude, that amps up the humour with his witty one-liners and quips during gameplay that only adds to the overall weird and comedic nature of the game. So if you've never played Blasto, now would be the perfect time to strap on your blaster and dive into the galaxy-saving adventure. Released exclusively in Japan, Paranoia Escape is a horror-themed pinball adventure that ends up feeling like an absolute fever dream, with bizarre visuals and gameplay mechanics that make it one of the strangest games that you can find on the console. It sees you being thrown into an otherworldly version of hell, where you take control of a pair of skeletal demons as you guide a flaming ball through a series of strange levels and use it to take out one of the many monstrosities that reside there. The shoulder buttons serve as your flippers, with the analog stick allowing you to freely move around the environment, with the goal being to clear each stage and take out as many enemies as you can, all the while avoiding hazards like giant stomping feet or sudden jump scares that fill the entire screen. The gameplay is really fast paced and at points can feel quite chaotic, with the flame sometimes feeling like it's got a mind of its own, but this unpredictability doesn't take away from just how fun it ends up being. Each of the stages is short and sweet, with all of them introducing something new, may that be different enemy types or environments that'll definitely keep you on your toes, and with a full run clocking in at about an hour, it makes for a great arcade-like experience, where the incentive to jump back in and achieve the highest score is the main driving force behind the game. So whether you're a fan of horror, pinball, or just love games that dare to be different, Paranoia Escape is bound to leave a lasting impression, and with no language barrier, it's easy to jump into its haunting but ultimately captivating world. My summer vacation is perhaps one of the weirdest but surprisingly calm and tranquil games that you can find on the PlayStation. Unfortunately, it never left Japan, but thanks to a translation, it's easy to get up and running, with the game following a young boy known as Boku as he heads to his family's house in the countryside to spend the summer. It all takes place over the course of 31 days, and there's no grand quest, no world to save, and no enemies to defeat, just the freedom to live as a child would. It may sound like there's not much gameplay to be had, but nothing could be further from the truth, with it all revolving around a day and night cycle with various activities such as catching bugs, fishing, flying kites, or simply interacting with your family and neighbours to help advance the plot. The best thing about this approach is that there's no wrong way to play the game, and you're given the freedom to choose how to spend your days, may that be doing nothing but trying to complete the list of bugs to collect, or just listening to all of the stories that the people in the village have to tell. The choice is truly up to you, and the village itself is a real highlight, with the game using pre-rendered backdrops that capture the beauty of rural Japan, with its attention to detail really standing out. From the chirping birds to the rustling of the leaves, it all comes off in a really authentic way. So for those of you who enjoy games that focus on atmosphere and story over action, then my summer vacation is definitely something you'll want to take a look at. Typhoon is an action platformer that sees the player taking up the fight as a young tiger who's out to avenge his clan and master the ways of kung fu. It manages to blend its focus on martial arts with platforming and spans just over 24 levels that range from snowy mountains to ancient temples that each offer a great mix of challenges, may that be simply navigating your way through the stage or enemy encounters and boss fights that help shake up the gameplay. What lies at the heart of the experience though is the combat system, and Typhoon's moveset includes a range of light and heavy attacks that can be strung together into combos, as well as special moves that can help you out in a tight spot. As you progress through the game, you'll slowly unlock more abilities by training with masters that further enhance your chances of dealing with the waves of enemies that come your way, and thankfully the controls are really responsive, allowing you to pull off these moves with ease. Of course, the platforming is just as important, and the level design does a great job of keeping things interesting, from crumbling bridges to swinging on vines and navigating moving platforms. And surprisingly, for an early 3D game, the camera works quite well and allows you to easily explore each stage and find hidden secrets, such as orbs that power your special moves and extra lives tucked away in hard to reach areas, with it ending up feeling like a mashup of Crash Bandicoot and Streets of Rage, which manages to carve out its own unique, albeit weird style. So if you're looking for a new platformer to jump into on the PlayStation, Typhoon is well worth taking a look at. The PlayStation wasn't without its fair share of SRPGs. From the likes of Vandal Hearts to Final Fantasy Tactics, there were plenty of ways to get your strategic fix. One game, however, that never gets talked about as often is Bridgeendee, which arrived in the West in 2000 and cast you as one of 6 different nations vying for the control of the continent of Forsenna, that comes along with a surprisingly epic story, with each of the nations providing a completely different campaign and narrative to complete. Now the game is mainly divided into 2 separate phases, phases. First, you've got the organisation phase, where you've got to manage your nation and oversee your castles, recruit and upgrade your army, and plan your next move on the world map. These castles are the lifeblood of your campaign, as they generate resources to maintain your army, and capturing as many of them as you can is a great way to increase your chances of success. The second phase are the battles themselves, and this is where the game's tactical depth truly comes into its own. Each of the encounters take place on an isometric grid, with your knights leading squads of monsters against the enemy forces. As you would guess, each of these knights have their own unique stats, classes and abilities which evolve over time as you accumulate experience points, but it's not all about just brute force, as your positions, the terrain and elemental affinities also play critical roles, demanding that you always think one step ahead of the enemy. Even though its setup can feel rather weird as you play through it, the intricate blend of tactical battles, empire management and its gripping story make it something not to miss. Well, that does it for another video. Keep an eye out for the next part, as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos. You can follow me on all of the socials which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters: Rhino, Skill Jim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining the Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to check the video out. I'll catch you next time.